However, the question arises that if donaldlu testifies about the non-existence of cipher, then how come ex-Prime Minister Imran Khan is in jail? A senior US State Department official expressed concerns about electoral abuse and violence during Pakistan's recent general elections. The concerns were submitted as written testimony a day before a congressional hearing about relations between the two nations. Donaldlu, the Assistant Secretary of State for South and Central Asian Affairs, said President Joe Biden's administration identified a series of irregularities in the conduct of February 8 elections, as he emphasized the importance of ties between Washington and Islamabad.
If you'll allow me, I'll drill down a bit deeper into these observations. We were particularly concerned about electoral abuses and violence that happened in the weeks leading up to the polls. First, there were attacks against police, politicians, and political gatherings by terrorist groups. Second, many journalists, particularly female journalists, were harassed and abused by party supporters. And third, several political leaders were disadvantaged by the inability to register specific candidates and political parties. On the day of elections, an internationally respected local election monitoring organization said they were barred from observing vote tabulation in more than half of the constituencies across the country. And despite a high court order not to interrupt internet service on election day, authorities shut down mobile data services, the principal means by which Pakistanis access social media and messaging apps.
The hearing was announced last week after more than 30 members of Congress wrote to Biden and Secretary of State Antony Blinken, asking them not to recognize Pakistan's new government under Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif. The February 8 elections were marred by widespread allegations of electoral manipulation, unusually delayed results, and rigging.
On February 8th, over 60 million Pakistanis voted in countrywide elections. These elections saw record numbers of women, religious and ethnic minority groups, and young people running for seats in parliament. It resulted in a range of political parties winning seats in national and provincial assemblies. Despite these successes, the United States and international election observers have expressed concerns related to both pre-election and day of election irregularities, including the undue restrictions on freedom of expression, association, and assembly. The U.S. and like-minded countries have also condemned electoral violence, attacks on media workers, and restrictions on access to the internet and telecom services. It is important that any claims of fraud or interference be fully and transparently investigated in accordance with Pakistan's own laws and procedures. And I'm eager to hear from the Assistant Secretary regarding his assessment of that election, if the outcome was credible, and how the election fits into Pakistan's historical context. It is also important that the United States-Pakistan relationship remain strong and rooted in our shared commitments to strengthening Pakistan's democratic institutions, supporting Pakistan's economy, cooperating on counterterrorism threats, and bolstering respect for human rights.
The State Department had voiced concerns over the elections at that time, but Pakistan has consistently denied the allegations. After criticism from the West, Pakistan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs on February 10th said it was surprised by the reactions, which failed to acknowledge the free and enthusiastic exercise of the right to vote by tens of millions of Pakistanis. We were particularly concerned about electoral abuses and violence that happened in the weeks leading up to the elections, Liu said before detailing attacks by armed groups on security officials and politicians, the harassment of journalists, and the prevention of some political parties and candidates from registering for the elections. Former Prime Minister Imran Khan's Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf party was barred from using its electoral symbol, a cricket bat, days before the polls when the Election Commission conducted that the party had not held internal elections on time. Khan and many other party leaders are under arrest. Still, candidates backed by PTI who had to run as independents emerged as the largest bloc in the National Assembly with 93 seats. In January, Khan was sentenced to 10 years in prison along with Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi on accusations of revealing state secrets, a case about Lu's alleged message. However, the question arises that if donaldlu testifies about the non-existence of cipher, then how come ex-Prime Minister Imran Khan is in jail?
मैं इल्जामात नहीं लगा रहा, अब ये जरा सुने, मैं इल्जामात नहीं लगा रहा, मेरे पास जो ये खत है ये सबूत है, ये मेरे पास जो खत है ये सबूत है, और मैं आज ये सबके सामने कहना चाहता हूं कि कोई भी शक कर रहा है ना इस मेरे खत के ऊपर, कोई भी शक कर रहा है, मैं उनको दावत दूंगा, ऑफ द रिकॉर्ड बात करेंगे, लेकिन मैं आपको खुद देख सकेंगे कि ये मैं किस किस्म की बात कर रहा हूं। अपनी कौम और मीडिया को ये सोचने, हम सबको हमने ये सोचना है कि हम कब तक ऐसे रहना चाहते हैं। मैं अपनी कौम को भी कह रहा हूं, अपने मीडिया को भी कह रहा हूं कि हम कितनी देर इस तरह गुजारा करेंगे। धमकियां मिल रही हैं,